Good morning, everyone. Sarah Barker with Connect Our Elders, and today is our Empowering Aging podcast. I'm very excited to have with me today Ryan McEniff. He is the owner of Minute Women Home Care and WellAware Care. Thank you so much for being with me today, Ryan.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I see you very active on LinkedIn. You have a great following. People love the work that you're doing. Would you mind sharing with the audience how you came to be in this industry?
I came to be in this industry through kind of a sad story where my mom got sick with cancer and needed 24-hour home care. And because of that, I moved down to Florida to be by her side. And that's where one of my aunts was there. We were talking about the future and what's going to happen because my mom was going to pass away. And she gave me the opportunity to buy Minute Women. And Minute Women is a private home care company, much exactly like what we were getting in Florida. And I had the opportunity to, be in charge of a company to kind of have my own destiny on my shoulders, as well as being able to help people the way that my family was helped. So it was a great opportunity and I jumped all over it.
So was Minute Women already in an existence, or was this a concept that you guys brought to life?
It was in existence. So Minute Women is located in the town of Lexington, which is known for the Revolutionary War. And a lot of towns, a lot of businesses are named Minute Men or Minute Man, this, that, and the other, based off of the soldiers. And so my aunt started the company in 1969, and she named it Minute Women based off of the location and that it was a woman-owned company. So that's how it started out. And I had the opportunity to purchase it from her after she had kind of exited her role. And it was just kind of sitting there waiting to either go out of business or for somebody to come along and scoop it up. So I had the opportunity and I jumped at it.
Awesome. So we have seen, we've been in the industry for a while, right? So we understand what home care is, the importance of it. But when COVID happened, right, the pandemic, it really brought to the forefront the importance of home care. Now, where is it that you see home care going in the future?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are still very focused on home care. I think it's unfortunately, the fact of the matter is that people had really negative experiences with assisted livings and nursing homes for the last 2 years. People didn't want to be in nursing homes before COVID, and now they definitely don't want to be in nursing homes. And assisted livings really had a tough time controlling the spread of COVID. And so what they ended up doing was internal lockdowns, which really caused people to decline based off of just having no interaction. And so it has swung people into the realm that can afford it to stay in their homes as much as possible, whether that's getting home care, whether that's home modifications, whatever it might be. People are really pushing to stay in their home and age in place at their own residence.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know from your profile that you are a big believer in technology. So where do you see home care and technology intersecting?
Yeah, I see technology intersecting are you hearing me? Because
Mm-hmm.
all right, good. I'm seeing technology really becoming popular because of COVID as well. Remote monitoring has become extraordinarily popular. It forced families that maybe weren't tech savvy to get comfortable with items like this, where it's basically a Zoom or a video chat, and that has allowed their introduction to remote monitoring. And I really think that home care companies should be at the front of being able to provide those services. My concerns are that home care is getting more and more expensive, and that is pricing itself out of the market for more and more families. And they are going to have to look at lower cost options that can at least provide some type of safety net for seniors. The same issues that home care are having are the same issues assisted livings are having. They're seeing their rates go up dramatically, which means less people can afford their services. And so that is naturally going to open up disruption into that industry to figure out how do we keep people safe in their own homes if they can't afford private home care or assisted living or some of the more expensive options that are out there.
So how does the technology solve for maybe that situation where there is an extreme level of resistance on the person who is in need of that supportive care? How does that technology solve for that in the beginning?
So there's a lot of technology out there with WellAware Care. We're doing fall remote, fall detection monitoring through using devices that use radar and are placed on the wall. So there's no interaction with the senior. There's no cameras. There's no buttons to press or pendants to wear or forget to wear or refuse to press. Those are what we're seeing. But there is a lot of technology out there, and it is allowing seniors to be able to stay in their home, whether that's through an Alexa device that they can have instant contact with a family member, whether that's through WellAware Care where they don't even know things are running in the background. But there are also smart pendants that are coming out for those that maybe really want that pendant around their neck or around their wrist. They are becoming much more technologically advanced rather than the typical "help, I've fallen and I can't get up" commercial where somebody's just pressing a button and then 911 magically shows up. What we're finding is that seniors are falling far more often before the big one occurs. And that means that you don't necessarily need 911 showing up to your door with ambulances and fire departments, making it aware on everybody in the neighborhood knows that Judy fell again. What really needs to happen is that fall detection alert can go out to family members and somebody can go over and check on mom. And more than likely, it's been a minor fall where somebody slid out of a chair or out of a bed and they just need help getting back up. But being able to know that these falls are occurring allows families to then know that the big one's coming. They can be proactive rather than reactive to the situation.
Right. It sounds like it plays a huge role in proactive care planning. What are your thoughts on using the radar, right, versus cameras? I hear what you're saying about making sure that the family's notified versus all of the EMTs and all of that, because that really could take a hit on that elder's dignity, right? When they constantly have these people come into their house for a fall, their neighbors see it. Now, what you're offering through WellAware Care versus, a camera solution, what are your thoughts on how it's less invasive?
Correct. And I mean, at the risk of insulting maybe some people out there, the vast majority of people do not want a camera in their home. They don't want to feel like Big Brother, whether that Big Brother's close family members do not want to know that they could be being watched at any point in time, especially when falls are happening in the bathroom, they're happening in the bedroom, they're happening in the kitchen. So 2 out of 3 areas are intimate areas where you're going to be naked, where you're going to be showering on the toilet. Do you want a camera in there? I don't think you do. So why would an 80-year-old want a camera in there? So what we need to realize is that we have to get away from cameras and figure out ways to be able to keep people safe without there being a lens in every room. And that's what we're trying to do with our fall detection and the radar technology. But it's certainly at the early stages. Technology has infiltrated every single industry or many industries, and hasn't really infiltrated the senior care world because sometimes seniors are resistant to it. If you have to interact with it, then you have to teach the senior on how to use it. And it doesn't mean that all seniors are not able to learn this stuff, but some of them just don't want to. Some of them are welcoming to it. Some of them aren't. But the other issue is we are dealing with an aging population that is getting older and older and having memory care issues. They can be wearing the pendant and forget that the pendant's there and never press it. We've seen that happen time and time again with home care. So our view is that the cameras are too invasive. There needs to be another solution for that, which is what we are deciding with our radar technology. And it doesn't need to be interacted with a button to be pressed with the senior, because more than often we're finding seniors that have memory issues and they're forgetting about the button. And on top of that note, if you whack your head hard enough, you might be out. You might be incapacitated, and the button could be right there, or the pull cord could be right there. We had a situation, we were in an assisted living, and the family chose to have cameras as well. So the fall detector went off. The family member went onto the portal, looked at the camera, and saw their mother had a head contusion, was crawling on the ground trying to get to the phone, and she crawled right back. Crawled right by the assisted living's pull cord. Totally forgot it was there because she was so confused. She was bleeding badly, and nobody would have known if it weren't for WellAware Care alerting the family members of that. So just having a phone in the home, just having a pull cord in the home, having the button around your neck, it doesn't always mean that it's going to be used and come through when you need it to come through.
So for anybody listening to this right now, maybe it's an adult daughter or son, and they're thinking, this would really be good for my parent. What is the process? How intense is it to get that set up in the home?
It's not intense at all. The technology has actually been moving rapidly and improving rapidly. Right now, to get generally you're talking these fall detectors scan a 13 by 13 area, so 6.5 feet on each side of it and 13 feet out. So whatever the size of your home is, that kind of gives you an idea that you're going to need to have probably multiple fall detectors. So a one bedroom assisted living apartment usually needs about 3 of them. And what ends up happening now, it's just mind blowing how great the technology is. We drop ship them out to families. They're already pre ready to go, and they plug them into the wall. They plug them into an outlet, place them on a wall, and within 2 weeks, it automatically learns the environment that it's in. It learns where the couches are. It learns where people are sleeping. It learns where the chairs are, so that you don't have those false positives when somebody goes to lay down on the couch and take a nap. And after those 2 weeks, it has learned your environment, and then it is completely ready to go to determine when falls are occurring. On top of that, it's not just about falls, but it's also knowing what's going on in your mom or dad's home. So I teed you up so you can ask my question.
In addition to the falls, what other sort of data is it collecting that is very useful in ensuring that the senior is going to be well cared for?
Yeah, so I mean, it really is. We have another device so WellAware Care is a software company. We take already existing hardware and we plug it into our software. So we have something by Withings that's a smart bed pad that will be able to track how long your mom or dad is sleeping for, the quality of their sleep, their resting heart rate while they're sleeping. If they get up in the middle of the night, you can purchase lights to put on the wall so it illuminates the pathway to the bathroom. Get back in the bed, the lights turn off. So you're going to be able to see essentially in almost real time, a minute by minute account of what's going on with your mom or your dad. If the fall detector in the hallway sees that your mom's there, that's going to say, oh, fall detector turned on because mom was in the hallway. Fall detector turned on because mom went into the bathroom. And then fall detector in the hallway turned on because mom exited the bathroom. So you have an idea. So you'll know how many times are mom or dad using the bathroom. You're going to find out a big one, which is how many times mom or dad falls and then gets back up on their own. That is going to be huge to be proactive on things, because then you can say, well, hey, 3 months ago, mom wasn't falling. She's falling now. Maybe there's a tripping hazard. Maybe there's a medication issue. Maybe there's just a UTI and there's dizziness. It doesn't necessarily mean you need 24-hour home care, but it sends up a yellow flag instead of a red flag, but the yellow flag that says, hey, you got to look into this because something's happening. And if it continues down this path, you're going to get a major fall where it ends up in a hospital, and then you don't know what the future is going to hold in terms of a change in somebody's ability to mobility or whatever could occur. So it really is allowing families remotely to be able to see what's going on in a loved one's home without the use of cameras, and then they can work with professionals like me or doctors or care managers and say, hey, this is what we're seeing. Because it's just, people don't know what's going on in their parents' home. I don't know what's going on in my dad's home every day. Everybody, like, you just don't know sometimes.
Well, and it changes. And sometimes it can change very quickly, right? And so, how are you finding, we have a comment here. So Alicio, I apologize if I have said your name wrong. He says, as a hospital nurse discharge planner, I concur with what Ryan is describing. We see a lot of falls in the hospital. So he, as a discharge planner, would be a person who would be referring patients to you to serve. And so how are you finding the use of this technology is strengthening your relationships with these discharge planners? How does that play into lowering readmission rates?
Yeah, I mean, this discharge planner probably has a long list of seniors that they see on a monthly basis. Then we call them frequent flyers, as that might sound kind of harsh, but the fact is that they're constantly falling, they're constantly getting re-injured, and they're just going into the hospital on such a regular basis. And now with readmissions being so important because hospitals are being penalized financially because of them, they're on top of mind for everybody along the Medicare pathway, from hospitals all the way down to hospice to rehab facilities. This is definitely strengthening the ability, because this allows families to be able to have this prevention, and hopefully be able to prevent major falls by seeing some of the minor falls occurring. And it's going to save families money, it's going to save hospitals money. I mean, we're talking this device, this for having 4 or 5 devices in your home is going to be $50 a month. We're not talking a lot of money. And so $50 a month may sound like a lot, but when you look at if that discharge planner refers me a 24-hour case, you're talking, I'm charging you close to $700 a day for 24-hour home care. So $50 is nothing once you get into the senior care world. And so these assisted livings, independent livings, and even other home care companies are going to eventually see that this is going to allow people to stay in their homes longer, more safely, and reduce hopefully the admissions to hospitals by looking at this. And of course, you can also supplement this by hiring companies that can monitor for you. So you don't with WellAware Care, the family members are the ones monitoring. The family members are the one getting alerts. But there are companies out there that will gladly be able to be the monitoring side for you. So they'll look at the data, they'll look at the analytics, and then they can make recommendations on what your mom or dad might need down the road.
Well, and let's address the fact that if we can reduce, right, the number of times having to go to the hospital, because we can do our best to stay ahead of it, let's address the fact that we are reducing the trauma for the senior themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people think, and I thought this way too. So I'm not throwing grenades, because you just don't know until you do. That you go to the hospital and then you kind of like just come out and you're back to normal. If I break my leg being my age, close to 40, it's likely going to heal, and I'm going to be back to running in 6 months or whatever it is. But with a senior, when you go into the hospital, your baseline is likely going to change, and it's going to change for a worse outcome, and it's going to stay there permanently, more than likely. If you're 80 or 90 years old and you happen to break your ankle, you're going to most likely have mobility challenges moving forward. So, one of the things that is difficult in the senior care world, whether it's home care, whether it's a physical therapy, is you can't show how many falls you necessarily prevented all the time. You can't always show what you prevented from happening by being proactive. But we see it time and time again where family members say, hey, listen, mom's not ready for home care, even though she just had a massive fall. And this is a real story. It happened 2 weeks later. She was confused. She opened up her basement door thinking it was the bathroom, we assume, and she fell down a flight of stairs and passed away because of that, because she was having these issues. And unfortunately, family members, it is very difficult for family members, and I empathize with them, to take charge of that situation when you're used to your mom or dad being the authority figure.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea with WellAware Care and having a dashboard that shows all this data is it makes that conversation easier within family members, saying, hey, listen, I'm talking with my sisters, and everybody has a different analysis of the situation. Well, if you have a dashboard that has data that's showing that mom is now falling on a weekly basis and recovering herself from a fall, you can't argue with that data, and you know that there's a problem, and that decision is made easier to say, hey, we need to come up with a solution because we have a problem here. So many families don't even know they have a problem until mom's on the way to the hospital for a really bad injury.
So true. And back to reducing the trauma for the senior themselves, right? If we can stay ahead of this, I find that, most times people are thinking of home care as just those activities of daily living, like the hands-on type care, meal preparation, transportation, toileting, bathing. But what about the psychological well-being of our clients? And the fact that if we can use technology to hopefully stay ahead of these falls, and keep them from being frequent flyers to the hospital, how does that lend to protecting their psychological well-being?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to quality of life, right? They want to have a higher quality of life, and you know, regardless of the situation, having a private home caregiver come into the home for, let's say, a minimum of 8 hours a day, all the way up to maybe 11, that's invasive. That is a tough situation to deal with. Now, most of the time, we find that there's a connection made, and then 2 months later, they can't live without the caregiver, right? But that crossing that barrier and getting to that point is really difficult for families and for seniors. Like you said, like they feel like, hey, I can't even live on my own anymore. Like how difficult of a reality must that be?
Mhm.
But if you're able to keep mom happy and you can say, hey, listen, we found an alternative that's inexpensive, there's no cameras involved, and it keeps and mom, it gives me the peace of mind. It allows me to be able to sleep at night that you're okay. And it's the ultimate lifeguard. It's just sitting there watching the waves. And then if somebody needs help, it can spring into action. And that's what WellAware Care does. So
Mhm.
it hopefully will be a less, feel like a less invasive of a product, and it will allow seniors to still feel like they're independent on their own, but they just have a safety net. They have a seatbelt on while they're driving instead of having no seatbelt at all.
Right. And let's talk about the financial benefits of
Sure.
this, right? So there are absolutely situations where it is going to have to be 24/7 people in your home. But, I believe that a high quality home care agency who is seeing the value of supplementing with technology, that when we look at the financial aspect, if we can supplement with technology, then we are being conscientious of what the budget is, right? And saying, okay, here's when you really need that actual human caregiving, but here's where we can supplement with this. So that way we make sure that we can preserve the assets as long as possible, because we do not want to put somebody in a position where they could possibly outlive their funds.
Yeah, and also the other elephant in the room is that seniors want to pass their assets down to their family members and not necessarily always give them all the way to an assisted living or to a private home care company. I mean, that's the goal, right? To allow your family to live better than you did. And the reason I bring that up is that I see personally that home care is being used later in that declining process until it is absolutely needed. And part of that reason is because of the cost. Part of the reason we're getting more high hour cases that last a shorter amount of time is because people are putting that off until the last possible minute. And so I do believe with all my heart that if we are able to put technology into assisted livings, into independent livings, into the home, it's going to be a triple win for everybody. It's a marketing to keep your parents safer. It's low cost, and it's going to, business wise, increase the length of stay somebody's going to have in an assisted living or independent living or at home. It will hopefully allow them to pass away. Eventually, we're all going to die, pass away in the place that they want to pass away in, which is their own home, whether that's an assisted living or their private residence. So
Mhm.
um, the financial aspect of all of this is that the amount of care is getting more expensive, and I think that technology is going to find a way to have some type of compromises, if you will. You're, like you said, you're not going to prevent a one-on-one caregiver. That is always going to be needed in many situations. But before you get to that situation, there's a lot of time there where somebody just needs a little bit of help. And how can we do that? And I think that's where technology is going to be really, really useful.
And I think John, I can't remember exactly where, but I know in California. So he's actually has a nonprofit in our industry and is setting up to launch this. So he said he works in the home care space, and we have to use technology to get the care our seniors need. With the rising cost of home care, tech is the key to the future. So I think it's safe to say, Ryan, that he agrees with you wholeheartedly. We have another comment from Alicio. Medicare is now promoting direct return to home and have increased reimbursement for care at home. That will be the trend in the next 5 years and beyond.
Absolutely. Where in Rhode Island, Rhode Island has a grant for up to $5,000 for home modifications. I think what we need to realize is that money is going to get spent one way or another. And to the commenter's point is that it is better to spend less money being proactive than it is to be reactive to the situation. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So if you're able to keep mom at home by the government or taxpayers paying $5,000 out of their pocket through a grant to make a home safe, that prevents a $200,000 cost hospitalization, surgery, rehab, OT, PT at home. I mean, it's a win-win. And so you might as well pay a little bit up front to prevent a lot of costs down the road. So it's not a surprise to me that people think that's going to be the trend, without a doubt.
Mike, one of my favorite people of all time, Mike Nally, he says, Ryan, he's interested in the dashboard ideas shared here. They're number 3 in home care software in the US. They're always looking for the best ideas of expanding their family portal. So he wants you to reach out and contact him. So we'll have to make sure that happens.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So how exactly did you get involved with WellAware Care?
So I know when we were emailing back and forth, I mentioned the National Aging in Place Council. I was in that council and I met these guys through that nonprofit. And I was talking to anybody that would listen to me about the rates are going up. The cost of home care is going up. We have staffing shortages like crazy. There's got to be a better way. The famous words, right? And I happened to meet George and Bob, their cousins, and they founded this company. And we sat down and had a couple lunches together and learned more. And then they gave me the technology to use in my own home, and I tested it for 90 days, and I was blown away. And I was like, this, and the underlying thing that I needed from them was that it all has to work in the background. The senior doesn't have to do anything whatsoever. And I believe that is really the way that all this tech in the home needs to be. It just needs to work in the background. Nobody gets more frustrated than me when technology isn't working when it should be is dead simple to just work. And once you have to start tinkering with it, once you have to start learning the app or whatever, it just becomes more and more of a bigger mountain to climb. And so they completely agreed with it. They found a company called VIAR that makes these fall detectors. And we were able to work with VIAR and bring them into our software. And it's been so far a great kind of marriage, if you will, that their ability with these fall detectors to then have our data and dashboard be able to take that information that it's getting and put it into these infographics that families are going to be able to see, what the heart rate is, when they're going to the bathroom, when they're going to sleep, when they're getting up, all those those analytics that are going to be great to be able to make a plan moving forward in the future.
And is this data
that's how I got involved.
Is this data? So what you're describing to me is that it has all these reporting capabilities. So are you finding that families or a home care company or care managers taking these reports, this data, to the appointments that the seniors have with their physicians? Is it playing a role in their clinical care?
Precisely. I mean, we have a client right now that the family knew she fell, but once we started putting these devices into her independent living facility, they said that they were shocked on how often their mom was falling. And then they got their PCPs involved. They got their doctors involved. They figured out a plan and what to do. And so a lot of times, it's kind of the iceberg. The only 10% of it about, and there's a whole 90% that they don't know about. So a funny anecdote was when I got caught partying in college. My mom said, "I'm not mad about the parties I know you've had. I'm mad about the ones I don't know you've had." Right. So the point being is you only know about so many of the falls, and once you start being able to see what's going on in the home, you're going to be shocked or surprised by all that information that you're getting.
Ryan, how wonderful would it be if we had the physicians across the country who are recommending to their patients and their families in these appointments, you should really check this out because, let's give our physicians a plug, right? They have a lot on their plate. They're seeing a lot of patients on a regular basis. And so it's really, I don't believe any doctor becomes a doctor because they don't care, right? Like they really do want to address the needs of their patients, but they too are overwhelmed. And so by utilizing this data, it really helps set them up for success to serve their patients.
Yeah, I mean, you go to a physician just like I do. I mean, you talk to a physician once a year for 15 minutes. I mean, that's really hard to have a complete holistic view of what's going on inside somebody's home and in their world or their lives. And I have to imagine that many adult children find themselves in a position when they're talking to their PCP and they're being asked questions and they're like, well, I think mom does this. I think this is what's going on, versus actually having concrete information. And from there, you really can make a plan that and makes it a lot easier to have a plan. The number one thing we hear from adult children is just that how difficult it is to get on the same page with just their other family members on what to do with mom or dad. We get those calls. They want to use home care, and then we get a call back saying, we're not going to go with home care because my sister doesn't think we need it. And so it's just like people are in disagreement on what to do rather than being able to sit down and carve out a plan that's going to work moving forward. And the more information you have, the easier it's going to be to do that.
Mm-hmm. So with WellAware Care, you are utilizing this in your agency, Minute Women Home Care. Now, is this something that you can provide to other home care agencies across the country as well as senior communities? How does that relationship work?
Yeah, so I provide WellAware Care for my personal customers of Minute Women. So we've had really great success with that. We have some video testimonials on our website and things like that. But I'm also kind of a dual role where I'm also an owner of the company now as well. So I distribute just to my customers, and then through as an owner of the company, I can work with any senior living company, any home care company that's interested in this. We have and are happy to send out demo kits that you can try them out and you can see for yourself how effective these can be. And between the fall detector and the sleep pad, you're going to be able to get a lot of great alerts. What we're hearing from, as we talk to more people, we learn about more applications for this. So what we're finding and what we're able to quickly tune to is that, some resident care directors in assisted livings, there's the traditional side and then there's the memory care side. Well, the memory care side, they're excited about this because of the bed pad, so that they can get an alert between the hours of 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. when somebody's supposed to be sleeping. If they get up in bed, they're a fall risk. So if they get up, they can get a text message, email, phone call alert that this resident in room 202 got up out of bed, and somebody can race in there to assist them to go to the bathroom rather than have them fall again for the 15th time or whatever it is. So as we talk to more professionals, we're finding more and more applications for this. For another example, a doctor is using us because he doesn't have a receptionist in his office and he caters to the elderly. So he wants these fall detectors in there in case somebody falls in his waiting room, and they can help them out immediately. So it's always interesting where people are, coming up with creative ideas on how to use this technology.
Mm-hmm. What do you have to say specifically to non-medical home care companies that have been saying for years, yes, I think technology is good. Yes, I would like to integrate this into my offerings for my clients. I would like to do this to differentiate myself from my competition, but yet they don't move forward and execute for various reasons. Too busy. They're afraid that it would be too expensive. What do you have to say to these home care companies that have been thinking about integrating technology but have not yet?
I mean, it's going to be a market differentiator, and it's going to build up your pipeline of your business. So generally, home care companies, if they're anything like me, their pipeline is maybe 7 to 10 days long. Generally, people are calling up on Thursday and Friday because mom is exiting the hospital and they need services right now. And so they're getting services within 24, 48 hours of that call. So imagine if you could get on the beginning stages of that decline of somebody and then be part of that consultation of watching somebody unfortunately decline and need more help. And then you can say, call them up and say, hey, listen, did you know that your mom fell again last night? Like, you might need to go in there and take a look at things. We can go in there together and see if there are tripping hazards. And then you're going to be eventually funneling them to your services. And if they don't end up using your services, you're going to be so early in that aging process that you're going to be able to make those referrals to your partners, who are then in tow going to refer you business down the road as well. Private home care is notorious for not referring out. Part of that is because people are using us at the last possible moment after they've exhausted everything. And imagine if you're able to really make those referrals out that are going to help families, make it less stressful, keep seniors safe, and then in turn, they're going to be referring to you when they have clients that need home care. So
and
it's
that's
a business.
the business aspect of it. And what I love about it, though, it is all through the lens of doing what's right for our nation's elders, right?
Yeah.
This whole proactive approach, that's fine. You don't need our services. You may never come on our services, but this is a good solution for you still, right?
Absolutely.
Still
Absolutely. And there are absolutely going, if home care companies decide to use this, there are without a doubt going to be customers that you place this into their home and they're never going to need private home care. Maybe something happens and things change. That is part of it. But you're also going to become a household name in so many more homes. They're going to know that it's the Minutewomen fall detection system. You could put your little sticker on the fall detectors and say, need our help, here's our number. You can make sure that you're front of mind when somebody goes. We had somebody in multiple assisted livings, and they were all asking, we need to talk to Minutewomen because we need to find out more about this fall detection device that one of our clients has. And because the client was just raving about it. So, I mean, it makes sense, but unfortunately, we live in a business with very high highs and very low lows. It's a roller coaster ride in home care. When things are good, they're great. When things are bad, they're really bad. And so, if you're going to be able to even that out and fill that pipeline and be able to have an idea of where your business is going to be in the next 6 months, this can help with that as well. And at the end of the day, you're helping families stay at home for a relatively inexpensive cost.
Mm-hmm. So how can adult children, a neighbor, a friend, maybe a legal financial professional who has a client and they identify this would be a good thing, how can they broach the conversation about considering WellAware Care as a solution?
So, I mean, the way that I say it is that anybody that's living alone over the age of 65 should have something in place, ideally WellAware Care, but something in place if they're a solo ager and they're over the age of 65. Every study shows that once you're hitting 65 years of age and older, you are becoming more and more of a fall risk. And so broaching that subject is more or less of just asking the question, well, what's the contingency plan if mom is alone and needs help? What happens in that situation? And most people are going to say, well, hopefully they can get to the phone, or I call mom at 8 a.m., 12 o'clock, and 3 o'clock to make sure she's okay, and go, the telephone route. So simply having that conversation of, hey, what's the plan if mom needs help? And then it opens up that conversation, and more than likely they're going to say, I don't really have a great concrete plan for this situation. And then that referral can be made.
And how can they have the conversation with mom?
With mom, it really comes down to, in my opinion, it comes down to, mom, you're doing me the favor. I know you don't need this, but it's going to give me the peace of mind that you're safe at home. And I think when you have cameras involved, that's going to be a hard no. But I think now, not that it's going to be a layup, but I think it's going to be much easier to say to mom or dad or convince them, hey, it's for my peace of mind. You're doing me the favor because I'm worried. And I know it's probably for no good reason, but I'm a worrier and I'm always worried about you. I want you around for as long as humanly possible. Would you be okay with just compromising with me on this thing? There's no cameras involved. Nobody's going to see you. And that can be the way that I find is really effective, that you're helping me out. You're doing me the favor so I can rest easy at night.
And what about also maybe talking about how it could prevent things? Mom, I know that you want to stay in your home, and this is really a preventative measure because I want to honor what you desire. And so we want to try to stay ahead of these things. So that way you don't end up in a position where you have to leave your home.
Absolutely. I mean, every situation is different. My family is very open and honest about aging and maybe needing help one day. Like my dad is, he has a girlfriend that he lives with. So he was like, if I didn't have a girlfriend, I would have WellAware Care because I know I need it. I'm getting old. Something's going to happen eventually. And so, every situation is going to be different, and there are going to be family members that are really open about this and say, yeah, you know what, it's time, I need some help, or yeah, I'm getting older. You can see that I'm using the cane a lot more. Those visual cues like needing to hold onto the railings, or you need to use a walker or cane, or all those things that say you're becoming a bit more of a fall risk. And that is where you really want to make sure that somebody has that safety net so that they're not on the ground for 8 hours after a fall has happened. And I mean, I can't, I was down visiting my dad earlier, and he said one of his neighbors was on the ground for 3 days because nobody
So
knew that they fell.
maybe we should, because we do have older adults that that listen to these, whether live or on the YouTube channel.
Sure.
And I really do believe that those of us in the industry, we have a responsibility to be real. It's not like we're trying to scare people, but because we do see these situations and we have for years, we would be remiss in our duties if we did not talk about the reality. So what do you have to say to, older adults about this, and to encourage them to be open to this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's people that are older. I mean, one of the ways that you can do an easy test is to Google the chair test. And it's basically how many times you can get up and down out of a chair without having to use your arms within 60 seconds. And if you're able to do more than whatever the test says, then your mobility is really good. And if you can't, then your mobility is not as good. And that is an easy way to have a real test on where you're at. And the fact of the matter is, and it's unfortunate, is that the leading indicator for future falls is past falls. So if you're sitting there knowing that you've fallen in the past, and by a fall, I mean that could be a slow slide out of a chair or a couch or out of bed, anytime that you've gotten on the ground and you didn't want to be there, that's the fall, then that's the proof that you're likely going to have future falls. That's what every single study says. And so you need to understand that at 65 years and above, you're just the likelihood of a fall is going to increase. And the problem is that you're playing Russian roulette. You don't know which fall is going to be the one that causes you to permanently have a limp, or not to be in a wheelchair, or have to use a walker. And all of a sudden it's that, it's 2020's hindsight. And then you're like, I should have done X, Y, and Z. The point being is that WellAware Care can't prevent the fall, but what we're going to do is prevent you being on the ground for 6 hours or 8 hours. So instead of just getting back in the chair and having some assistance, that means you're likely going to the hospital. You might be spending the night in the hospital, or if it's bad enough, you might be going to rehab. So having somebody that can get to you and help you immediately is imperative for your safety and your longevity. And that's where, I would be frank with people and say, quite frankly, if you're over 65 years of age, you should be concerned about falls. And that can very easily be install grab bars everywhere, reinforce handrails. I mean, it doesn't have to always be WellAware Care. It can be some very simple things that are going to make you a lot safer in your home.
And I think that if you wouldn't mind, address the fact that it's from a place of care, like those of us in the industry, but the adult children, it's not about taking away independence, right? So any older adults listening, it is not with the intent to take away independence. It's about what can we do to facilitate your independence for as long as possible.
I mean, absolutely. I don't want it to sound scary, but it's just like the cost of not doing anything can be extraordinarily high. And again, you might have a fall and you might bounce right back and it's no big deal. But if you want to stay in your home as you age, you need to be proactive in doing that. And that can mean downsizing from a multi-story home into a ranch so that you don't have to go up and downstairs. There's a lot of things people already do, but it's never a good situation we're walking in when somebody needs 16 hours a day of care with us. So it's trying to keep you as independent as possible for as long as you can. And yes, that means that you might have to sacrifice a little bit by having devices come into your home, but the alternative could be much worse down the road. It's just that we don't have the ability to look into the future and see what's going to happen in the next 6 months. But if you've had falls in the past, it's a pretty good indicator that you're going to have falls in the future.
I really appreciate you being candid, because that's what Connector Elders is all about, is really filling this gap in education direct to consumer, because you and I both know typically by the time a family comes to us, nobody's really talked to them about the reality of situations. So I appreciate the candidness. So with the time that we have left, I want to ensure that we talk about the National Aging in Place Council. What is the National Aging in Place Council, and why did you get involved with it, Ryan?
So I have my own podcast that we're going to be excited to have you on, and I'm not here but going back to what you said, and I'll get to the NAIPC, is that I do this podcast, and we do these podcasts because they're labors of love. I mean, they take time, they take effort. This platform costs you money. It costs money to do these things. And my frustration was going to Council on Aging's, trying to do a seminar to help people, and like 2 people showed up. And there are a lot of Council on Aging's in Massachusetts, so there was just no way you could go to all of them. So that's when I started talking into a microphone, because you could get to a broader audience, and those looking for that information will eventually find you. Whether it's your great podcast, my podcast, I don't care. Just somebody doing something, being proactive. And so getting to the NAIPC, I wanted to get involved with a nonprofit that helped the local communities. And when I found and met Tara Ballman, who's the executive director, and we hit it off. And I again met Bob and George through the NAIPC of WellAware Care, and I wanted to be part of a community that was helping seniors and trying to give back, especially because I'm in private home care that really caters to the wealthy. I mean, the fact of the matter is that, lower middle class and those that are poor are not going to be paying for my services. So how can I get involved in something that can give back to the community for those that are less fortunate? And I thought the NAIPC was a great way to do that. So the NAIPC is like-minded, usually professionals, but it doesn't have to be professionals that are in senior care. There are advocates for seniors, and we get together and we put on presentations, we put on events that are focused to benefit the community, to educate the community, and try to get people to be more proactive about aging and create a plan. Basically, that's what the NAIPC. Are there
chapters all over the United States?
Yeah, no, let's not go all over, but we want to be all over. But I would say that we are coast to coast, some way, somehow. So we have chapters in San Diego, we have chapters in Chicago, Boston, New York has multiple chapters. We are always looking to grow, and if you're passionate about that and that sounds interesting, you can certainly reach out to me, and we can get you engaged with that. But yeah, there are probably 15 to 17 chapters now, I think. So a decent amount, but there's definitely room to grow and room for more. So absolutely, by all means, if you're interested.
Yeah, that leads me to I think share with the audience just what we have ahead of us. We often hear the word silver tsunami. I know some people in our industry are wanting to change that word because of, ageism has become a hot topic. So we'll sum it up as this increasing need, right, within the senior demographic, and what is ahead of us. And, I've often heard that, we haven't even begun to see, right? The tsunami is just picking up speed. So, would you like to share with the audience of how big of a deal all of this is?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't remember the exact number, but it's something like 10,000, 12,000 people a day are turning 65. I mean, it's just a massive amount of people that are getting older. And we're seeing those effects. COVID exacerbated it, and COVID definitely made it happen a bit sooner. But we're seeing those effects about the staffing shortages that we're seeing, why unemployment is so low, and you can get a job almost anywhere, is because so many people are now leaving the market, they're retiring, and they're getting older. And you're only going, like you said, seeing that happen more and more often. And that is putting a strain on the healthcare system and will continue. I mean, you go to CNBC and they're every other week they're talking about how Social Security is going to run out in another 2 years sooner than they thought, or whatever the story is. And it's because just so many people are getting older and they are entering that phase in their lives called the golden years, right? And the silver tsunami is going to get bigger and bigger. It is not crested, if you will. And you're going to have a lot more people that need a lot more care. And there aren't enough caregivers to go around for all those individuals, which is really causing individuals, like family members, to become those caregivers, which then pulls them away from the economy, pulls them away from doing a full-time job to maybe a part-time job, which then causes more staffing shortages. And it's just kind of a really difficult cycle to get into, because people are getting older and they're going to be needing more help. And what we're finding too is that families live further and further apart now, whether older adults retire down to Florida, which is kind of the status quo in the tri-state and New England area of going down to Florida. But also, you just didn't have that many people leaving the nest and going out to Chicago when their parents were in Boston or whatever it might be. And so now families are far more scattered apart, and that makes it even more difficult as seniors age and get older. What are we going to do about those seniors that are basically alone and their families live throughout the United States?
Well, and there's so many facets to it, which what you're explaining right now brings us back to start learning about the continuum of care, start learning about what resources exist, start learning about how what you need can be supplemented with technology, start learning about alternative funding solutions to pay for care. For example, we have Carmen, another one of my favorite people from Veterans Home Care, right? The VetAssist program.
Yeah, I know Carmen.
Hi, we have a lot of elder veterans across our country, and it breaks my heart how often I am working with someone who has never heard about the aid and attendance program before, right? The VA does not do a good job of proactively letting them know. And so there's all of these different things that we need to start educating our society on as it relates to aging and what they're going to need to successfully have a good experience.
Yeah, the Veterans Aid and Attendance Program is a perfect example of a good idea run badly, in my opinion. And I say that because there are a lot of people out there that could benefit from the Veterans Aid and Attendance Program. The problem is that they need to pay for private home care until the program kicks in. So you're asking poor people that don't have the funds that qualify for the Veterans Aid and Attendance Program to float the cost of private home care for up to 8 months until they can retroactively get paid back. It doesn't work. So every time I talk to people about the Veterans Aid and Attendance Program, I'm like, you're going to need 60 grand, 70 grand, or whatever number it is to be able to float it until you're retroactively paid back. So Carmen, we need to get together and fix the problem. I don't know how. We'll figure it out. It's a mastermind group. But sometimes I bang my head against the wall a little bit with that program.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carmen, for participating. And then, so we're talking about all the different things that it takes and that people need to know about. I want to make sure that I definitely thank the Connect Our Elders Empowering Aging podcast sponsor for 2022. That's Retirement Genius, my good friend Chris Orestes. So Retirement Genius is all things alternative funding solutions for care, whether it's in the home or a senior community. So very, very thankful to Retirement Genius for being our sponsor. Ryan, how can people connect with you if they would like to learn more about Minute Women Home Care, right, in Massachusetts, or if they want to learn about WellAware Care for themselves, their loved ones, or if they are an industry provider and want to start offering it as a solution?
Yeah, well, I mean, more than likely people are finding us through LinkedIn, I guess. So if you type my name into LinkedIn and I'm there and I'll accept that, you can call me at my office. My number is 781-862-3300, and I'd be happy to talk to you about it. And those are the best ways to get in contact with me. If I could mention just one thing, of all the things that I've said in this podcast, one thing I always end podcasts on is saying, if you do only take one thing away from this podcast, go to 5 Wishes. I have no affiliation with it. get your advanced care planning done with your loved ones. It's inexpensive to free, and it will make a heck of a lot of difference when the time comes when you need help or your loved one needs help. Getting your advanced care planning done is a no-brainer. And just one thing I always advocate for that I have no monetary investment in, but it's just such a simple thing that a lot of people don't do. So go to those places and get that done.
Ryan, we should do a virtual event for people to come on and you can walk them through it. So we'll have to connect offline for that.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you being my guest today on Empowering Aging. Thank you very much for your time and sharing your knowledge.
Thanks so much. It was fun.
All right. Again, very, very thankful to our sponsor for the Empowering Aging podcast, Retirement Genius, all things alternative funding solutions for senior care. Thank you for joining us today. As a reminder, my name is Sarah Barker with Connect Our Elders. We are on a mission to empower the aging process through education, advocacy, resources, and we are going to redefine the way the senior care industry serves referral partners and families. Thank you for being with me today.